You're listening to
the Beer O'Clock.
The Beer O'Clock Show.
You're listening to the Beer O'Clock Show.
It's Beer O'Clock and this is the Beer O'Clock Show. My name is Mark and joining me is my beer buddy, no longer broken, Steve. Hello, Steve.
Hi, Mark. I'm all mended this week and back to my usual form.
Very good. We had people commenting you were so poorly last week.
Yeah, it was just clearly it came across in the recording as well. But no, I'm all better now. I'm drinking alcohol again and everything. So all is good with the world again.
Very good. Also joining us this week is beer blogging wunderkind, our old pal at Total Curtis, Matt Curtis. Hello, Matt.
Hello, guys. How are you?
Very well. How are you?
I'm very well. My cat he's just come in and he's thinking about coming and sitting on me, but he's not sure why there's a giant microphone in front of me. So he's sort of like, here he comes. Say hello to Cricket, everyone. He's coming.
Hello, Cricket.
You might hear him rub himself against the microphone. Don't be alarmed.
You might hear my furry boy George meowing occasionally, so they might end up having their own little chat. You never know.
Yes. Beer cats.
We are reviewing this week, because of course we do have a beer to review, N7 by Hammerton, which is a 5.2% pale ale. We'll be getting to that in just a little bit. Let's talk about what we've been drinking this week. Matt, let's start with you, mate, as the guest of honour. What have you had that's been interesting in the last week or so?
One beer that really stands out is that I had an amber ale from a brewery called Modern Times in San Diego. And it was absolutely magnificent. I had this at Dog Eat Dog at their launch party on Thursday, the new Brewdog Hot Dog Bar. And it was a classic West Coast IPA, a sort of amber in colour. It had a nice sweetness from the malts, had a bit of crystal, but it was fresh. So it had this really zesty, dank hop character, but it wasn't like cloying. It was bright and the flavours were really deep. And yeah, it was £6 well spent.
Anything else?
I also had on the same night I had a Prairie Bible Belt, which was absolutely stunning, 13% crazy beer from Prairie.
What style was that?
A big dark imperial stout, as far as I'm aware.
Oh, wow.
I don't always know now because I've given up Untapped, and a lot. I have a beer and I then check it in and read all about it, and now I found it was taking away from my beer experience. So I assume it's an imperial stout. I think it must have had some adjuncts in it, but I just ordered it and enjoyed it on the night. I didn't ask what was in it. It just tasted great. It was really chocolatey, had this sort of spiciness, herbal quality to it, and it was a cracking beer.
Cool. How about you, Stevie?
Well, before I drink my beers, I just want to ask Matt about the Dog Eat Dog. Actually, Matt, what's that like as a venue and as a concept? Is it going to work in your opinion?
So it's a great location, Essex Road. It's right on Upper Street, so it's a really restaurant-focused area. It's always been famous for having a lot of eateries around Islington and Upper Street. Inside, it's super chilled out, seating, table service. The prices are good. I enjoyed the food. My only concern is that there's only so much you can do with a hot dog, and they've got a really interesting menu. I'm not sure if the idea has legs long term. There's a little hot dogs or legs gag there, but it's good. It's well worth checking out. I think the prices are good. It's got a great BrewDog and guest beer selection. And I had the Chicago dog, which was, I actually had two hot dogs. I had the Chicago dog, which is topped with chili and cheese, and then I just had a plain dog, and I covered it in all the available sauces on the table.
How much are they, by the way, the hot dogs?
From £6.50.
Okay.
And the Chicago dog was £8.50. So it's not like much more than Byron or somewhere like that around the corner, and they're good size, and they've got good the sweet. I didn't have any sides myself, but a friend of mine had some sweet potato fries, and he was raving about them. So it's nice. It's super casual. They also do things like breakfast. They have good coffee. This is something that really bugs me, that that bars just sell beer, and so that it's a space you can go from 10 a.m. They're open, so that's a cool concept. Whether people will go there remains to be seen, but I wish them the best.
Yeah, and they do craft root beer and stuff as well, don't they?
Oh yeah, this is really good actually. Square Root Soda in East London have got this drinks. All their soft drinks are from them, and they're really good, well made soft drinks. And so they've got, I think it's got like this fountain and like free refills and stuff. So that's another cool concept.
Cool. Now back to you, Steve.
Yeah, back to me. Sorry, I was just interested in the in the concept and seeing if it was working. Yeah, so I jumped back onto the wagon this week and properly started giving some of my beers a hammering, and I've been going through the Ibria Discovery box that we were sent. So just some highlights that I want to pull out from that. That the Freight Nero Imperial India Coffee Stout, which was a collaboration between Northern Monk and Namada. A nice coffee flavoured big stout. Didn't really feel overly strong. Hides the ABV very well, so that's one to keep your eye out for. Brixton Lupulo Pale Ale, which was a cracking little pale ale. Lots of lemon and lime coming off of that. What else was good? Penny Lane Pale Ale from Mad Hatter as well. Now, I'm not a massive fan of the Humble Pale, but for me this was spot on. It was rich, fruity flavours, biscuity malts, with some nice citrus hops at the end of it. But the real winner for me out of the ones I had at the weekend was the More Beer Claudia, which was a hoppy wheat beer. Now, this was obviously in the style of the Cloudwater beer that we did a few weeks ago. This was just really soft, malty biscuit coming through on it, sharp citrus running throughout it, and leading to this wonderfully long bitter finish. So that was a real highlight of the week for me. And then last night I decided that I'd try the infamous stout float. So I got I had a bottle of 8 Wired Ice Stout, and I dumped a load of vanilla ice cream in it and made the most amazing beery milkshake that you're ever likely to come across. It was thick, it was coffee-like, had all this booziness to it, had the vanilla coming through. It was just absolutely spot on.
Oh, very good.
So yeah, I've properly got back into it this week. What about you, mate?
Well, after you sent me a text message last week saying you got to try Claudia, it's amazing. I got into that as well, and you're right. It's a pretty decent beer. Didn't knock my socks off, but it was very drinkable, especially considering that it was a decent sized bottle as well. It wasn't a small bottle, was it?
No, it was a bomber, so 660 mils, yeah.
And as well as that, I had I don't know how to pronounce this. It's Berlo, BRLO Pale Ale from Berlo Craft Beer in Berlin. A mate bought for me. There was some German pop-up out his way. He lives in East London somewhere. Someone who'd been to Berlin on holidays and brought back loads of shit. And that was really nice. One of these pale ales that got the lovely hops like swimming around the edges, and in the middle is just a refreshing, clean beer. And the other one that I've had is, you had it the other week, Steve, was the Heart and Soul by Vocation.
Oh yeah, Vocation beers are really good.
A session ale.
I'm yet to try the Vocation stuff. I've seen people raving about them, but the cans look really great. So as soon as I see some, I will be picking some up.
Yeah, well, that Heart and Soul at 4.5% or something, and packed with flavour. Yeah,
for a little session IPA, it's packed with the sort of flavours you'd expect from your standard 6.5%, 7.5% IPA. Absolutely cracking little beer.
Yep, indeed. Now, Steve, you got some news for us, mate?
Yeah, just a couple of bits this week, mate.
All right, here's your pips. Beep, 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 beep.
Okay, so the first bit of news is all about us, actually. So just to announce that we are doing our next live show from Hot Burns and Black on Thursday, the 12th of November. Tickets for that are now on sale via the Hot Burns and Black website. You just go to their site and click on the events page. The evening is called All Black. and it's going to be an evening of dark New Zealand beers. So for a mere £10, you'll get into the shop, you'll get 3 tasters of some beers, you'll get 10% off of everything in the shop on the evening, and you'll get to spend an evening in Mark and I's company, which is absolutely the crunch for wanting to buy your tickets there. We're also hoping to have Todd from the New Zealand Beer Collective and other guests joining us for that show. So there'll be a link in tonight's show notes, or alternatively just hit up hotburnsandblack.co.uk. And then the only other piece of news this week was the major announcement last week that ABinBev have taken over SAB Miller. Now, this has created, or will create, a super company that will be worth approximately 70 billion a year, and will control roughly around a third of the world's beer. The reason why I stopped to pause there is because I'm really keen to hear what Matt's got to say about this, and I'm sure Matt's going to have quite an opinion on this one.
I might do.
I hope so. After leading you in like that,
aren't you, mate?
Yeah. Well, it's a huge thing. The majority of reaction I've read has been negative, but it's before I go on, I'm not a financial analyst. I know a little bit about sales, I know a little bit about corporations, but it's this is huge business. This is a big deal. To put it in perspective, I mean, Heineken bought 50% of Lagunitas for a reported $500 million US dollars. Goose Island was a relatively small $38.8 million, but this is $104 billion. It's a ridiculous amount of money for 30% of the world's beer. I think it's actually going to be in the short term of benefit to certainly larger craft brewers in the US, because they'll be so busy with this. I think their acquisitions team will be more concerned or not whether they've still got a job. There's going to be so much cost cutting and redundancies as the companies consolidate that it's just going to be internal chaos. I mean, the amount of people they'll be moving around is crazy. In terms of the UK, I think it only still ranks as third behind certainly I think Heineken are the biggest player. So it's not a big deal here as it is in the US, where it will be massive. I also think you'll see them dump Coors. I think Coors will separate because they'll see it's in the US they'll control the 3 big brands, Miller, Coors and Budweiser, and I don't think they'll allow that. So I think they'll have to get rid of Coors. One other thing I've got my eye on is Diageo, which is who own Guinness, who are also consolidating. I think they'll be looking to dump Guinness, and I think Coors or maybe these guys could mop them up, which is another huge thing. But I think that's the next thing you'll see. You'll see Coors go, and then you'll see Guinness go to a beer company rather than a spirits company. But one thing, to be a bit philosophical, when something takes on a certain mass, it starts to collapse in on itself. These are people that sell beer from a market sector that is very slowly decreasing, very, very slowly. But they're not looking at they're not looking at the beer. They're looking at how to sell it rather than what they should be making. So, yeah, overall, I think the sort of beer we drink is safe as houses from these monsters.
Well, let's hope so. But I guess it's a case of watch this space on this one. So, and that's the news really for this week. So I think it's possibly time to drink some beer, mate. What do you think?
Indeed, let's get into it. So this week's beer is N7 from Hammerton, 5.2% pale ale.
Just get out of my cool bag. I'm prepared.
And how many bottles have you got, Matt?
I've got 2 bottles with me today. That's what I have left. it's great to have a Hammerton brewery. I'm literally sat like 2 miles away from the brewery right now, so that's pretty cool. And it's super cool brewery. Lee Hammerton has to be one of the nicest guys in the London brewing scene, if not in the country. Really passionate guy, really knowledgeable, really knows his stuff. While I was concentrating on talking, I've now spilt my beer everywhere. But that's all right. I'm going to get a lot of aroma. I actually might have to go and get something to wipe this up. But I'm going to try and wing it.
No, it's good because you've actually given us a nice segue because there's a great interview at the end of tonight's show with Lee. He gave us a little bit of time to talk to us about because I, like yourself, Matt, I've seen Lee speak a few times, and he speaks with so much passion about the family heritage that there is in the brewery as well, and all that comes across in the interview at the end. So make sure you hang around all the way to the end of tonight's show to listen to Lee Hammerton talking about his brewery.
Okay, so this beer pours out very nice, very lively. I've got like half a glass full of head, and I'm waiting for it. It's like an ice cream float without the ice cream.
Yep, it is quite a lively one. That's good though, because it's obviously nice and fresh. And I will just at this point as well say thanks to Lee, because he did give us these beers while I was down there interviewing him. So yeah, and he made sure that we had the freshest ones that were available in the brewery at the time. So cheers for these, Lee.
Yeah, so let's get into it, guys.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers.
Oh, lovely. I get sort of like almost like a honey quality, but then that sort of lovely citrusy, pithy. There's definitely grapefruit and navel orange on the nose. Yeah, mine was dead lively as well. Hence why I just had to dash off and get something to clear the beer I spilled everywhere while I wasn't concentrating and speaking at the same time. But yeah, it's a beautiful amber colour as well. So there's two pale ales they do. They do the N1, which is sort of a 3.8 more sessionable one, and this is the 5.2. But this is the N7 is my favourite way to drink. This is on cask, and it's in the running to be my number one cask beer of the year, but it's got a fierce competitor from 5 Points Pale Ale. So one of those two beers, I'm just going to have to keep drinking the both of them when I see them, and
that's high praise indeed.
Keep trying to narrow it down.
Yeah.
But the reason that I should stress that the reason why those two are in the running for my cask beer of the year is because they are local, they're brewed near me, and they're served at a pub near me, and that's how you get good cask beer. So that's why it's two London beers. It's purely because of where I am and where I drink most of the time.
And when we asked you to come on this show, Matt, again, we did ask you to recommend a beer, and without hesitation, this was the one that you went for straight away. So
I think I might have been in the pub with Lee the night before, and it
felt like you had to.
But I also think that out of 80 odd London breweries, you usually find the same 3 or 4 getting praise all the time, and Hammerton are just going from strength to strength. I love their Islington Lager, which is a steam lager. Their Pentonville Stout, which is brewed with real Malden oysters, is absolutely beautiful. And their tap room, which is only open, I think it's the last Friday and Saturday of every month, is just a great place. It's just off Caledonian Road. It's on the Overground, or you can get the 91 bus. And that's a really cool place. It gets Friday nights are quite a party, and they usually have some great food there as well. So yeah, it's a great addition to the North London scene, and they fit in really well, and everyone seems to respect and what each other's doing in that part of London.
Cool. I'm getting lovely hop flavors from this.
It's very bitter. It's lovely. It's like almost like classically bitter. Like it's like that real lemon zest pith. It's absolutely sumptuous. But the malts are there to make sure it doesn't get out of hand. It's like sort of like that lovely rolled oats and barley quality. It's almost like sort of white bread. absolutely classic. It's Sierra Nevada Pale Ale, but it's drier and more bitter. So it's kind of like almost like a British riff on the classic American pale ale. That's probably why I like it so much.
I can see that it has got a massive bitter finish to it, and it lasts as well. But it's not an unenjoyable feeling. It's perfectly well balanced. It brings all the flavours together that you've been experiencing through the aroma, through the initial taste, and through the finish. It just brings them all together so nicely. This is a cracking little beer, and I'm really pleased to be doing this one.
Yeah. So what other beers do they do? Is it just the N1 and the N7, or do they do a?
No. As I said, they do. Their 4 main beers are the N1 and N7, and then there's the Pentonville Oyster Stout, which is brewed with Malden oysters, and the Islington Lager, which is a steam beer, a bit like Anchor Steam. Again, it's got that lovely bitterness. But they've done some really great one-offs. Recently, they did an Earl Grey Black IPA called Baron H. And that was stupendous. That last time I went to the tap room, I didn't realise how strong it was, and I was drinking it by the pint, and it was sort of like going on 7%.
I didn't get on with that, but then I don't like Earl Grey tea. So...
I drink black Earl Grey tea quite like that's my evening drink usually. So I love Earl Grey, and they've just done a white IPA called Geistweiss, which I haven't tried yet, but I'm eager to.
Now that Pentonville Oyster Stout that you mentioned, is that the oyster stout that you featured at your event that we were at last year?
Yes. So last year I did it was my second event at the Duke's Head. I've done a lot since to the Duke's Head in Highgate, who I run their beery events. So yeah, the first beer we had was we had Lee with us on the night actually, and we had the oyster stout with oysters. And I remember that we were trying to shuck the oysters, but we had to run down the back street to the restaurant Coat, 4 doors down, and ask one of their chefs to come and shuck the oysters for them because we couldn't do it. But I remember you both. I think Steve, you lied about trying oysters. I seem to remember.
No, I didn't lie. I openly said I didn't want to try them and wasn't going to try them. I think it was Mark that lied.
I didn't lie. I just didn't say that I had or hadn't.
It's a shame because oysters and stout are one of the most heavenly beer pairings. But I guess if you don't like oysters, then that wouldn't be the case. But yeah, and we're doing Darker Days 2 on November the 4th and Wednesday the 4th, which is the last event we're doing at the Duke's Head this year. And this year we have teamed up with Siren Craft Brew, who are going to launch their Caribbean chocolate cake on cask and keg. But we've also got some other beers. We've got Bones of a Sailor Part 3, which is a Pedro Jimenez aged stout.
Oh, that's a cracker, that one.
Yeah,
that's up there as being a potential for my beer of the year, that one.
We're having that with food from a new street food trader called Le Bao, who do Chinese buns, and I've not tried their food yet, but we're going to have something really rich and meaty to go with this beer. Actually, no, I tell a lie. The Bones of a Sailor is going to be last with the cheese course with Truffles Deli, and they're going to bring some cheeses down to try with it. But it's sold out. It's sold out in 24 hours, so we're really looking forward to having the guys from Siren down and entertaining a great bunch of people and tasting some incredible beer.
So Matt, just on the back of that, things seem to be going from strength to strength for Total Owls at the moment. Do you want to give us a kind of appraisal of where you're at and what you've been up to and what's coming up?
Yeah, it's kind of gone crazy. I mean, I've been working really hard. I spend most of my evenings. This is a rare Monday evening for me because I'm not writing or editing photos. That's my usual Monday routine. I'll get home, have a bite to eat, and I'll shut myself in my study and just work on stuff until I get yelled at by Diane and she says, it's, come to bed, it's 1 a.m. or something like that. And that's I keep having to force myself having to have breaks, because I generally at the moment will come home and I'll want to work on stuff. So a few great things happened. I relaunched my blog, so I wanted to improve the way it looked, and I was trying to improve on the content. So I'd get more people reading it. And I started writing for a magazine called Ferment, which I write for every month. And then the most exciting thing is I was approached by a guy called Michael Kaiser, who is an absolute legend. He runs a website in the US called Good Beer Hunting, and he asked me to be his UK correspondent. I've written a couple of pieces for him now. My second one was live today. It's all about my trip to Peyottenland and the Zenne Valley, just south of Brussels in Belgium. But I've been traveling around, like working on pieces for him, and a few other things like Hot Burns and Black. I'm like you guys, I'm doing an event there in aid of the charity Mind. That's sold out as well. That's this week. It's on Thursday. Just looking at my diary. That's this Thursday. We've got a packed house for that one. It's just I'm just going to push it as far as it can go. Really, it's very exciting. I get to travel. I've pissed a lot of my mates off because I don't hang out with them because I'm doing beer stuff. But they kind of understand. The most important thing is Diane understands, and she's very supportive of the amount of time I do it. So it's just really, I think, coming back to why I started blogging. I started blogging because I needed to get all the stuff inside me out, all this passion for beer, and writing seemed the logical way, and that's just evolved. About 18 months into it, I almost packed it in, but that's when I started to meet people and make friends like you guys, like Chris Hall, who now from blogging now works for Brew by Numbers, and I met loads of great people, and as that happened, it spurred me on to write more, and then it was a case of I was never writing for other people, it was just for myself. But then when I realized that people were reading and enjoying it, I realized that I could try and make content that they enjoyed even more. So it's a real exciting challenge to try and work out how I can write differently to other beer writers, come up with different ideas, and get more and more people interested. And because the end result is really getting more people excited about beer, and the more people who are excited about beer and enthusiastic about it, the more people will hopefully want to read stuff I write. I'm just gonna keep at it and see where it takes me.
Cool. Steve, how are you finding this beer, mate?
It's so good that I wish I'd gone down Matt's path of actually getting more than one bottle of it and to enjoy this evening, because it's pretty much gone, if I'm honest.
That note that you first came out with, Matt, about the honey characteristics to it is spot on, because it has that very lightly sticky but smooth feel to it, mouthfeel. It's a lovely sweet, very clean, big juicy banger flavors. Yeah,
I wouldn't quite say this is a juicy banger, because that's when maybe for you. For me, it's too bitter. I'm getting, now it's warming up a bit, I'm getting a few more characteristics. So the malt character is like honey, a big spoonful of honey slapped on a big bit of crusty white bread, and on top of that you've got sort of grapefruit zest and juice. But then I'm now getting this two very distinct floral notes, lavender and honeysuckle in the taste, and that's like a floral quality and a zesty quality. It's ultimately, even though you break it down into all these different flavors, when you combine it together, it's actually a very simple beer. It's just a nice bitter pale ale that's very easy to enjoy, and 5.2 is, I like a stronger beer because I think a bit more alcohol will give a beer a bit more body. I'm not a big fan of a lot of 4% session IPAs because I find that there's enough balance in there for me personally. So I generally tend to stick to sort of 6-7% IPAs. That's what I like, because I like that body. But yeah, it's a cracking beer, and I'm going to open my second bottle now because this is what I had to. I knew this would happen.
Well, mine's all gone. It was very drinkable. I mean, 5.4% isn't 5.2. Sorry, isn't that much to get down. It's it kind of wears its ABV on its sleeve pretty proudly. It's lovely, clean flavors, incredibly drinkable. Steve, do you have any final comments?
I can't add to what either of you guys have said about it. I mean, I obviously said earlier on in the show I'm not normally a fan of the standard pale ale variant of beer, but this is one that I would happily drink again. And I can see where Matt's coming from when he says that this is best on cask, because I can imagine that a pint of this on cask would absolutely blow your socks off.
Yeah.
It's also very dangerous on cask because it's easier to drink, and 5.2. If you drink a pint every half an hour for 3 or 4 hours, then you'll know about it. Ask Lee about it. He'll tell you about it.
So that is the N7 from Hammerton, and listen for the interview that Steve did with Lee Hammerton from Hammerton at the end of the show after the tinkly music. Now, Stevie, do you have a big box of nothing winning prizeless prize?
It's the biggest box of nothing this week. I'm going to have to give an honourable mention this week as well, because there was one that was leading the way until this one popped up on my feed. So first honourable mention to Martin at MJP007, regular contributor to the show, for a great picture of, he was obviously at an Adnams evening. There were a load of Adnams casks that were lined up along the bar, and it was a really nice looking picture. That was there until about an hour before the show, and then up popped a cracking picture from Son of a Gun. It's the first time this man has won this for a while. Basically, he's got a bottle of beer in the middle of a forest with a waterfall behind it. It's a stunning picture. It's in the show notes, and it's also on our Instagram feed. And there is a great big massive box of nothing heading its way across the Irish Sea to Son of a Gun this week. If you do want to enter your own, put your picture up on Instagram, use the hashtag Cheers Guys, and you too can win your very own big box of nothing.
Very good, and congrats to him. Now, do we have a hot topic?
Yes, mate. So this week, very simply put, the question I asked on Twitter this evening was, are pumpkin beers really any good? And before I come to you guys for your opinions, let me share what some of our listeners have said about them. So, can I get a P, Paul Grant? Ballast Points is the best he's ever had. The rest are chemically and sweet, especially the much-loved Southern Tier Pumpkin. Nostromo Brewco. Now, I think this one nails it for me. Not had too many myself to pass judgment, but I'd say the consensus is brewers say no, marketing says yes. Matt Chinnery, the half-pint gent, says, if only I was allowed to bring one to the next bottle share, then we might find out. I've had a few decent ones, yes. Again, Martin Oates, never had a good one myself. I go out on my way to avoid them. Luke McGlynn, seems to be a seasonal commercial pun-related gimmick, really. Julie O'Grady, not tried any yet, but looking forward to the Beavertown. Stingy Jack, I've got in the fridge, which also brings me to a point where people that listened to last week's show would have heard me arguing with beer farts about whether it was called Stingy or Stingy Jack. Well, I had to look up the dictionary definition, and it is actually Stingy Jack, so I'd take that one. I'm wrong. And then just to finish with Phil Kite, the great QBO, oh dear God, no. Need another one to make sure that I'm not an idiot. And then again, also Son of a Gun, they're always a disappointment. Pumpkin has little or no flavour, so it's actually the spices that are the letdown. So that's what Twitter thought about this week's hot topic. Before I share my opinion, which I think I already shared last week, but I'll have it again. Matt, pumpkin beers, any good?
Well, I don't think there's anything wrong with pumpkin. I think my personal preference is for beers that aren't flavoured with cinnamon, nutmeg, and sugar. I I think the great thing about beer is you can find a beer for anyone to enjoy, and a lot of the beers I get, particularly the really hoppy stuff, Diane, my partner, doesn't enjoy. But she came back from the shop with 8 cans of Stingy Jack from Beavertown, and she absolutely loves it. And there's loads of, I mean, I had the Pumpkin Down from Ballast Point, which is a Scotch ale with pumpkin rather than a straight pumpkin beer. And I thought that was an enjoyable beer. I had it at the end of quite a heavy session, so I probably would have drank anything at that point. But I remember enjoying it. And I also I was out in America, in Colorado, a couple of weeks ago, and I had 2 incredible pumpkin beers. They were both sours. One was from Almanac, and it was from their Farm to Barrel series. They're from California. And that was their souring is exceptional, and regardless of what they seem to put in it, whether it's citrus or pumpkin or whatever, it tastes fantastic. And Avery Brewing, who went into my top brewers, probably my top 10, if not my top 5 brewers, the guys Avery in Boulder, Colorado, they did a pumpkin sour, and it was absolutely mind-blowing. It had that sort of snap and finesse of a Belgian Gers, but with pumpkin. But you couldn't really taste the pumpkin because the yeast character dominated. But it was technically a pumpkin beer. So there's beer out there for everyone, and if people enjoy pumpkin beer, then that's fantastic because they're enjoying beer.
Mark, thoughts?
I will say that Matt is wrong. If you like pumpkin beer, you're doing it wrong. No, seriously. I think the only pumpkin beers I have are the ones that you take a version of too, Steve, which are the Christmas-themed winter spiced beers, which I've never found particularly palatable. I'm sure there's some very nice ones out there, but I have yet to try. I'm not a big fan of pumpkin, though.
So, same here, and I think, as I say, my view was documented on last week's show when we did that little clip from Indie Man with beer farts. I'm not a fan of pumpkin beers. I'm not a fan of the spices in them that accompany them, so I tend to avoid them. So I think that's an overwhelming view on this week's Hop Topic, and look out for the revisit of this particular version of Hop Topic when in a few weeks we do the question: are festive beers really any good? as well.
Aren't they more or less the same thing, only without pumpkin?
I think so, yeah. I just think sometimes the festive beers, literally somebody's gone nuts with the festive spice mix in the cupboard and maybe dropped too much of it in the mash tun or something like that.
Sorry, Mark. I actually find that Christmas beers, spiced beers, are really good with a bit of age on them because the flavours of the spices die down. But I've done a little experiment. I bought some stronger spiced Christmas ales a few years ago, and they've been at the back of my cupboard, and I'm going to open them this Christmas and see how they've aged. I'm really glad because I thought a couple of them I know they were a bit over pitched by the brewer, and I thought they might explode, but so far I haven't seen any explosions in my beer cupboard. But time is with spiced beers, time can be really good. A bit of oxidation and that can add a bit of sherry notes if it ages properly, and that can be beneficial. That's only if it's a stronger beer, really. But yeah, hopefully they'll be all right when I drink them this Christmas.
And don't forget, you can buy your beers, pumpkin or otherwise, from Ales by Mail, Beautiful Beers, Beer Merchants and Ebria, who all now offer a 10% discount to Beer O'Clock Show listeners on any beers from their websites. Check out all the details on our beer list page. Our website is beeroclockshow.co.uk. Our Twitter is at Beer O'Clock Show. Instagram is at Beer O'Clock Show. Steve is on Untapped at Beer Show Steve. I'm on Untapped at Beer Show Mark, and I'm on Twitter at Beer Show Mark. Matt Curtis is on Twitter at Total Curtis. And what's your website, Matt?
It's www.totalales, pronounced Total Ales, .co.uk.
And Steve, next week we've got the Walking Pallet himself coming back, haven't we?
We have some random bloke off Twitter joins us again for what I imagine is going to be another interesting show. Ooh. Why do we always end up doing more than 2 beers when we've got Justin on the show?
The controversial Justin Mason.
Absolutely. It's interesting because this is a first for us. We're trying something new next week. We're doing an Essex Brewers showcase. So we handed the show over to Justin. We said Justin's been doing a series on his blog about Essex beer and the Essex brewing scene. So we said, okay, Justin, show us the best of Essex on one of the shows. So he's got 4 beers for us to try next week. If anybody remembers back to the last time we had Justin on with more than 4 beers, it was a very, very, very long show.
It was.
So we'll either be doing tasters next week, or Mark will be doing a marvellous editing job. But look out for that next week. That's our Essex Brewers Showcase, kind of hosted by Justin Mason at 1970s Boy.
It'll be very much hosted by Justin after the first couple, I think. Thanks very much, Matt, for joining us this week.
Cheers, Matt.
Thank you very much for having me, guys. It's been a pleasure. And can I just add, while I've been on the show, I've checked my Instagram feed, because I did take a photo of that Modern Times beer. It was called Blazing World, and that was Modern Times, and it was an amber IPA. It was brilliant. And the Bible Belt is an imperial stout in collaboration with Evil Twin by Prairie from Oklahoma, with coffee, vanilla, chilies, and cacao nibs. And one more thing, because I like talking, as you know, there was one beer I promised myself I'd mention, and I forgot, but I've just remembered, and I really want to get it in. It's another Mad Hatter beer, and it was the Tzatziki sour. So I don't know if you like Tzatziki with like Greek food, like mint yogurt, but it was a mint yogurt sour, and it was absolutely mind blowing. It was weird. I couldn't get enough of it. I think Paul at Mad Hatter is an incredible brewer, and people are gonna go nuts for their beers, because they're willing to try crazy stuff that no one else is. So yeah, had to give them a mention.
Very good, Steve. Thanks, mate.
It's been the highlight of my week.
And mine. Cheerio, everyone. Bye bye.
It's beer o'clock, and this week I'm in North London with none other than Lee Hammerton, owner of Hammerton Brewery. Lee, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
Lee, on this week's show we've been featuring the N7 beer. Tell us a little bit about the beer. Where did the inspiration come from for this beer?
So N7 was the first beer that we ever produced, the first beer we ever brewed in the brewery. It came about because I suppose hoppy pale ales, American styled IPAs I suppose, were sort of what got me into drinking beer a bit more, and one of the reasons why I wanted to start a brewery, and that was the first beer that I wanted to make. So that was the inspiration just behind the N7 was I wanted to make a beer that I liked, the style to the sort of standards that I hoped we could do. How it actually came about was one of my good friends, James Kemp, who's quite well known within the industry. Is very very good brewer. He used to, I believe he used to be the head brewer at Buxton, which you're sure you know about.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I think he once upon a time before that he was a senior brewer at Thornbridge. Before that, Fuller's. And then before that he worked, he was over in New Zealand. I think how he got into brewing was he won a home brewery of the year, best home brewer of the year in New Zealand. So he wanted to help me out. I was trying to work out what hops to use, what sort of malt to use. James was lucky enough for James to come in and collaborate with me and help me come up with this beer. So yeah.
Okay, and it's a beer that's available. It's available in bottles.
Yeah.
Keg
and
cask
cask
version of it as well.
Yeah. So we do bottles, keg and cask. We're starting to, like most brewers, I think. Bottles and cans is such a massive market now, and it's growing rapidly every week. So that market's got, we seem to be producing a lot more bottles now, and we're also keg and cask as well. So yeah.
Okay, so all of your beers, this one's obviously called N7. All of your beers have got names that are relevant to the locale where we are.
Yeah, that's right.
Intentional?
Yes, it was. So part of one of the main reasons why I wanted to start a brewery, or one of the reasons, not the main reason why I wanted to start a brewery, but one of the I suppose USPs about the brewery, and one of the sort of, when I was working out whether it was feasible, it was around the area Islington. So I'm not originally from Islington, but I've lived here for over 10 years, and I knew it was such a great area for pubs and bars, and finding good beer. But there wasn't a brewery, so and yeah, because I love the area, I thought it would work well if we sort of named them after the area as best as we could.
So what are the other beers in the core range?
So although we've named our core range are definitely centred around Islington, but we're sort of swaying away from sort of that naming convention. We don't want to restrict ourselves too much, but so on the specials they've got different and weird and wonderful names now. But so our core range is N7, which we've been talking about, was our first beer. Second beer we did was Pentonville, which is quite an interesting one. It's an oyster stout. We're maybe 40 metres away from Pentonville Prison. If you threw a stone over there, you'd be able to hit it. And then we had N1, which is our session pale ale. So a lot of people love the N7, but as I found out, a lot of the cask market wanted a sort of more sessionable, lower ABV, hoppy pale ale. That's why we brought out N1. So N1 is probably the main postcode of Islington. And the last one of our core range is Issington, which is steam lager. So it's kind of a bit of a hybrid lager in that it's quite interesting that you get quite a bit of flavour from it, because the yeast we use is San Francisco style yeast. Well, it is a San Francisco yeast, and it's basically it is a lager yeast, but it ferments at ale temperatures. So lager normally ferments at 12 degrees, around that, and ale is between 18 and 20. So the lager, so this particular yeast ferments at ale temperatures, so warmer, around 18 degrees. So it kind of brings out a bit more flavour. Yeah. So.
Okay, now I've been lucky enough to hear you talk at a couple of events with absolute passion and pride about the family name of the brewery. Do you want to just tell our listeners about how it came about, how you're linked to the original brewery name?
Yeah. So so it was probably about, I think I started putting pen to paper and seriously started looking at starting the brewery October 2012, and at that time I was a bit fed up with what I was doing, office job. I've been doing that for at least a good 10 years, and it was decided that I didn't really want to be doing that for the rest of my life. I wanted to do something I enjoyed and something I was interested in, so started looking into starting a brewery. Started writing the business plan, planning a bit further, getting more in depth as the months went on. A few months into that, I found out that there used to be, so my surname is Hammerton, and a few months in I found out that there used to be a brewery called Hammerton Brewery. My brother had actually been collecting old memorabilia, sort of labels and beer mats and things like that you can occasionally appear on eBay. So thought that was quite interesting. They were actually down in Stockwell, so South London. I think the brewery's since been demolished, and it's now flats or developments. So thought nothing of that, and just thought that was an interesting story. And later, probably another couple of months down the line, after speaking to our grandparents, we found out that we're actually relatives of the original brewery. So we just thought it was just a link, we shared the same name, but it turns out we're actually, it's in our family, it's in our bloods basically. So we're we descend from some of the original brewers, Hammertons basically. So so that was, so we uncovered that bit of history, which was complete surprise to us. So we didn't know about this, and so after trying to find, we were working out what we could call a brewery. I was thinking of different names, trendy names or something that's going to work. And the more I sort of discussed it with friends and family, everyone just thought it was such a great idea to bring back Hammerton Brewery, because it's it's a heritage that we've got, and it's a great story, because it was completely completely by surprise that we found out, and yeah.
And have you managed to secure any of the original yeasts from the old brewery?
No, we haven't. I mean, I've looked around a bit, but I haven't extensively, to be honest. But because it was kind of, I always wanted to just brew beers that I wanted to drink, and recipes that I wanted to make, found interesting. So yeah, we haven't got to that stage yet, but we probably will sort of try and unearth a bit more at some stage. But we did. So one of their original brews. So the original Hammertons was the oyster stout. So all our other beers that we produce are just beers that we like to make, we like to drink. But the oyster stout was one that was really interesting. So that's a new recipe, but it's based on an old beer that they did. So yeah.
Okay, so what's in the future for Hammerton Brewery now? We're sat here in your tap room, which is quite a nice little space you've got here. You're a stone's throw from the station.
Yeah.
Tap room's open last Friday and Saturday of every month.
Yep, it is. Yeah.
What's next for you as a brewery? Where do you want to take things now?
So as a brewery, I mean, the main thing for us was always consistency of our beers, and making solid beer every time. So we've been doing that for about a year, I think. We've got great feedback. So to some people, they might have looked at us 6 months ago and thought, when are these guys going to bring out some more beers? So we've had our core range for quite a while, and we wanted to just wait until we were really happy with those. We were brewing it consistently, and then we wanted to start bringing out new beers. So that's where we are at the moment. We're sort of happy with where we are with the core range. We actually won some fairly big industry awards for those as well, which is great recently. So we for now we just want to concentrate doing what we've been doing the last year, but also bringing out some more interesting, exciting beers. So we brought out a beer called Baron H recently, which is a Earl Grey black IPA. So it's nice hoppy black IPA with infused with Earl Grey. And then we've also brought out a white IPA called Geistweiss, which has just been put into bottles, so that'll be out soon, but it's already out in keg and cask. And we've also brewed a new Peruvian beer, which is really interesting, with Peruvian corn. That's still in the test stages. So the next kind of 6 months, we just want to sort of experiment more and just bring out some weird and wonderful beers. And I think that's where we want to be now. We've potentially got to start looking at buying new tanks already, because we're sort of starting to struggle with tank space. So that's on the horizon as well.
Okay, so if people want to find out more about the brewery, find out the opening times, where you are, where do they go for more information?
The best place normally is our blog, which, to be honest, doesn't get updated that much, like a lot of brewery blogs, I suppose, and a lot of blogs in general sometimes. Certainly with us anyway. Normally our opening times for the brewery are on our website, on the blog. I think next month we're going to be opening up quite a lot for the rugby. I quite enjoy rugby, and it's a good excuse to open up the brewery and put the big screen and watch the rugby. But sort of updates mainly on the blog and Twitter. Of course, we're quite reasonably active on Twitter. So yeah.
Okay, great stuff. Well, listen, I'm going to let you get back to running a brewery. Yep. I'm going to finish this N7 that we're enjoying now. So cheers, Lee. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much. Good to speak to you.